If you saw Martha Okafor a year ago, you would have thought she had everything. She was the kind of woman who made heads turn when she walked into a room. She ran her own small company, loved to dance, and wore bright dresses that matched her laughter. Her husband, Damien, was a big name in the city. People called him a business lion. Together, they lived in a mansion that looked like something from a dream. But all of that changed the night of the accident. It happened on a rainy evening. Martha was returning from her sister's house when a careless driver ran a red light. The world spun. When she woke up in the hospital, everything felt strange and far away. Damien was there at first, but his face looked pale and worried. The doctor told Martha she would never walk again. She was paralyzed from the waist down. At first, she thought Damien would stay by her side. He did for a few weeks, sitting beside her bed and holding her hand. But as the days turned into months, things changed. The warm smile she knew began to fade. Damien stopped sleeping in their room. He started coming home late, smelling of expensive cologne and strange perfumes. Sometimes she heard him laughing on the phone with friends or maybe other women. Now, every morning, Martha woke up in her big, lonely bedroom and stared at the ceiling. The only sound she heard was the soft humming of the air conditioner. Sometimes she would hear the distant noise of staff cleaning or gardeners trimming flowers outside. But inside, it was always quiet. Damien barely spoke to her. He only talked when he wanted something, his shirts ironed, his shoes polished, or his meetings undisturbed. Martha had no family close by. Her parents were long gone, and her only sister had moved far away after the accident. She missed the days when she was busy and strong. Now, even getting into her wheelchair took all her energy. Still, she refused to give up. She spent her time reading, praying, and looking out the window. Sometimes she would draw or write letters she never sent. There was only one person who tried to make her feel seen. Samuel, the young gateman, had a warm smile and kind eyes. He came from a poor family and sent most of his salary home. He was tall and thin, always dressed in a simple blue shirt and black trousers. While the other staff avoided Martha, maybe out of pity or fear, Samuel always greeted her. "Good morning, madam," he would say, bowing slightly. If he saw her in the garden, he would stop to ask if she needed water or help moving her wheelchair. Sometimes he brought her fresh flowers from the gate, saying, "The garden is blooming for you, madam." It was Samuel who made Martha feel a little less alone. But Damien didn't like Samuel's kindness. He said, "You have work to do. Don't waste time talking." Damien always seemed angry, but Samuel never answered back. He just nodded and got back to work. Martha noticed the change in her husband more and more. He used to call her his Rose, but now he barely looked at her. Once, she tried to join him in the living room while he was watching football. Damien glanced at her, then at her wheelchair, and sighed loudly. "Don't you have somewhere else to be?" he said. She felt her face grow hot, but she said nothing. She wheeled herself back to her room, biting her lip to keep from crying. At night, she could hear Damien's car leaving the compound or his footsteps coming in very late. Still, Martha tried to keep hope alive. Maybe, she thought, he just needed more time. Maybe the man she loved would come back. She promised herself that she would not let her pain turn to bitterness. As the days passed, Martha wondered how long she could stay invisible in her own house. She tried to hold on, believing things could change. But deep in her heart, she knew something was coming. Something that would test her courage more than ever before. And outside, near the iron gates, Samuel looked up at the mansion. He wondered why such a beautiful house felt so sad. He wished he could do more for the lonely woman behind those walls.
The Okafor mansion was always full of movement, but today was different. Bright banners hung from the front porch. Cars rolled in through the gates, parking in neat lines on the gravel driveway. The staff hurried from room to room, making sure every glass sparkled, every carpet was smooth, and every flower vase looked just right. Damien was throwing a grand party for his business friends and their families. Martha watched the excitement from her window. She had not been to a party since her accident. She remembered how she once loved parties, how she laughed, danced, and made everyone feel welcome. Now she felt more like a ghost in her own home. But today, she wanted to be seen again. She wanted to show everyone that she was still Martha, even if she sat in a wheelchair. She picked out her favorite dress, a soft purple one with tiny flowers. With a bit of effort, she fixed her hair and put on some light makeup. Looking in the mirror, she saw a tired woman, but also a brave one. She took a deep breath and wheeled herself toward the living room. As she moved slowly through the hallway, she heard the sound of glasses clinking and music playing outside. Staff members passed by her quickly, barely looking at her. Martha paused at the large glass doors that led out to the garden, where the party was in full swing. Laughter and loud voices filled the air. Damien stood near the entrance, talking to a group of well-dressed men. He wore a sharp suit and looked every bit the powerful businessman. When he saw Martha rolling toward the door, his smile faded. He quickly walked over to block her path. "Martha, what are you doing?" he whispered sharply, trying not to draw attention. She looked up at him, her heart pounding. "Damien, I just want to come outside for a little while. I want to see everyone, maybe say hello." Damien glanced over his shoulder. Some of the guests were starting to look their way. He forced a smile, but spoke to her through clenched teeth. "This is not the time, Martha. People are here to relax, not to feel sorry. Go back to your room." Martha tried to keep her voice steady. "But I live here too. I just want to join." Before she could finish, Damien raised his hand for silence. "Don't embarrass me, Martha. You know how people talk. Just look at yourself. You can't even walk. What do you want them to say about me?" His words hit her like cold water. Suddenly, she realized Samuel was standing nearby, holding open the gate for another guest. He had heard everything. Martha saw pity and anger in his eyes. She looked down at her hands, trying to hide her tears. Damien turned to the staff. "Samuel, take Madame Martha back to her room, please. She's not feeling well." Samuel walked over quietly. He knelt beside Martha and spoke softly, so only she could hear. "Do you want me to wheel you back, madam?" Martha nodded, her cheeks burning with shame. Together, they turned away from the party and moved slowly down the hall. The sound of laughter behind them grew louder. It felt like the whole world was turning its back on her. As Samuel pushed Martha's wheelchair, he whispered, "You did nothing wrong, madam. Don't let his words hurt you." But Martha couldn't answer. She kept her head down, the tears finally rolling down her face. When they reached her room, Samuel parked the wheelchair by the window. He handed her a small white handkerchief. "If you need anything, just call me," he said gently, before stepping outside and closing the door. Martha let herself cry for a while. She had never felt so small, so invisible. She wanted to shout, to tell everyone she was still here, still alive. But Damien's words kept ringing in her ears. "You can't even walk. What do you want them to say about me?" Outside, the party went on. Damien laughed with his guests, pretending nothing had happened. Samuel, back at his post by the gate, kept glancing at Martha's window. He wished he could say something to make her pain disappear, but he didn't know how. That night, when the house was quiet again and the guests had all gone, Martha stared up at the ceiling. She promised herself she would not let Damien break her. She was more than her legs, more than his shame. Deep inside, a new strength was building, a small flame that would not go out. But she could not shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The hurtful words, the shame, the loneliness, something told her that the worst was yet to come.
The days after the party felt even colder for Martha. She stayed in her room most of the time, looking out her window at the garden. Sometimes she watched the clouds drift by, And sometimes she watched Samuel as he swept the front yard or opened the gate for visitors. The laughter from the party was gone, but the memory of Damien's harsh words would not leave her mind. Damien became even more distant. He would leave early in the morning and come home late at night. When he was home, he barely spoke to Martha. Sometimes he would walk past her as if she was just another piece of furniture. If she asked for anything, he would sigh loudly or snap at her. The house was big and beautiful, but it felt like a prison. The other staff members, seeing how Damien treated Martha, tried to stay out of the way. The housekeeper, Mrs. Doris, used to chat with Martha while cleaning, but now she always seemed busy. Even the cook avoided her. Martha knew they were just afraid of Damien. She didn't blame them, but it made her feel more alone than ever. But Samuel was different. He was not afraid. Every morning he greeted Martha with a smile, even if Damien was nearby. Sometimes he brought her fresh oranges from the little tree by the gate. Other times he would quietly ask if she wanted to sit outside in the sun. One warm afternoon, Samuel saw Martha sitting by the window. He knocked gently on her door. "Madam, the garden is very beautiful today. Would you like to see it?" Martha nodded, grateful for his kindness. Samuel helped her into her wheelchair and wheeled her out to the garden. The flowers were bright and colorful. Birds sang in the trees. For the first time in weeks, Martha felt a little bit of happiness. "Thank you, Samuel," she said softly. "You are a good friend." Samuel smiled. "You are welcome, madam. My mother always told me, kindness is free and it can change the world." As they sat in the garden, Martha talked about her old life. She told Samuel about her job before the accident, about the places she visited, and about her dreams. Samuel listened carefully, asking questions and laughing at her funny stories. For a short time, Martha forgot about her pain. But happiness did not last long in the Okafor mansion. One evening, Damien came home with a guest, a woman named Angela. She was tall, with shiny black hair and a bright red dress. She walked through the house like she owned it. Damien introduced her as an old friend, but everyone could see the way he looked at her. Angela spent more and more time at the mansion. She would sit in the living room with Damien, laughing loudly. Sometimes Martha would hear them whispering and then laughing even more. It made her feel invisible and unwanted. One afternoon, as Martha was reading a book in her room, Angela walked in without knocking. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "So, you're Martha," Angela said, her voice cold. "Damien has told me all about you. Such a pity, really. You must be bored sitting here all day." Martha felt her face flush. "This is my home," she replied, trying to sound strong. Angela smiled a thin, cruel smile. "Well, maybe not for much longer. Some people just don't know when to leave." She turned and walked out, leaving the door wide open. That night, Martha cried quietly. Damien had not just turned his back on her. He was bringing someone else into their lives right in front of her. Martha wondered how much worse things could get. But Samuel was watching. He saw the way Angela treated Martha. He noticed how Damien ignored his wife and spent all his time with his guest. Samuel's anger grew each day, but he did not show it. Instead, he decided to be even kinder to Martha. If no one else would care, he would. One morning, as Samuel helped Martha to the garden, he whispered, "Don't worry, madam. I will not let anything bad happen to you. You have a friend in this house." Martha looked at him, hope shining through her sadness. In that moment, she believed him. Angela's visits to the mansion grew more frequent, and it was clear to everyone that she was not just a friend. She acted like she was the real lady of the house, giving orders to the staff and even telling Damien what to do. The staff whispered behind closed doors, but no one dared to challenge Damien or Angela. Martha tried her best to ignore Angela. She stayed in her room most days, reading and writing in her journal. But sometimes, even closing her door could not keep out the pain. The sound of laughter and music from the living room would drift up to her window, reminding her of all she had lost. One evening, as Martha finished her dinner, she heard a soft knock at her door. She thought it was Samuel, but when she opened the door, she found Angela standing there with a sly smile. "Can I come in?" Angela asked, stepping inside without waiting for a reply. Martha put on a brave face. "What do you want?" Angela sat on the edge of Martha's bed, looking around the room as if she owned it. Then she leaned closer and lowered her voice. "I have an offer for you, Martha," she said. "It's time for you to move on. Damien deserves a better life, and so do you. Why don't you just leave quietly? I can even help you get a place to stay." Martha stared at her. "This is my home," she replied, her voice shaky but determined. "I'm not leaving." Angela's smile faded. "Suit yourself," she said, standing up. "But don't say I didn't try to help." Later that night, Samuel found Angela waiting for him near the back gate. She called him over, holding a small white packet in her hand. "Samuel, I need you to do something important for Mr. Damien," she whispered. She pressed the packet into his hand. "Put this in Madam Martha's food tomorrow morning. It will help her sleep better. Don't worry, you'll be rewarded." Samuel stared at the packet, feeling cold all over. "What is this?" he asked, but Angela just smiled. "Don't ask questions, just do it, and you'll get more than your salary could ever give you," she said, before disappearing into the shadows. Samuel stood there, trembling. He knew this was not just medicine. He could feel it in his bones. He could not betray Martha, not after all she had suffered. Early the next morning, Samuel went to Martha's room. He closed the door behind him and showed her the packet. "Madam, Angela gave me this. She said I should put it in your food. I think it's dangerous." Martha's eyes widened with fear. "Thank you for telling me, Samuel. You did the right thing." She looked at the packet in her hand, her mind racing. "What should we do?" Samuel asked quietly. Martha thought for a moment. "We need to be careful. If Angela and Damien want to hurt me, we must find proof. We need to show the world what they are planning." Samuel nodded. "I will help you, I promise." They hid the packet in a safe place. From that moment, Martha and Samuel became a team. They watched Damien and Angela closely, listening to every word and waiting for the right moment to expose their wicked plan. After Samuel showed Martha the packet, everything in the mansion felt different. Every step, every sound, every whisper seemed sharper. Martha knew she had to be careful. Angela and Damien were watching her, just waiting for her to make a mistake. The next day, Damien came into Martha's room with a fake smile. "How are you feeling?" he asked, but Martha could see the coldness in his eyes. "I'm fine," she replied quietly, pretending not to notice anything unusual. "Good," Damien said, glancing around the room as if looking for something. "If you need anything, let me know." With that, he turned and left, closing the door a little too hard. When Martha was alone, she checked her hiding spot for the packet. It was still there, safe. She felt a small bit of relief, but she knew things would only get worse if Damien and Angela found out she knew their secret. Samuel stayed close, checking on Martha every hour. He brought her meals himself, refusing to let anyone else near her food or water. Whenever Martha went out to the garden, Samuel was never far behind. Sometimes he even acted like he was just sweeping, but really he was watching for danger. One afternoon, as Martha sat in the garden, she saw Angela and Damien talking near the fountain. They were arguing in low voices, but Martha could see Angela's angry face and Damien's worried eyes. She knew they were up to something, but she couldn't hear what they said. That night, Samuel came to Martha with an idea. "We need proof, madam," he whispered. "If we can catch them saying something bad, we can show the police. They won't be able to hurt you anymore." Martha thought about it. "But how will we get proof?" she asked. Samuel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small recorder he had borrowed from his cousin. "We can hide this in Damien's office. He always talks to Angela there. Maybe they will say something we can use." Martha's heart beat fast. It was risky, but it was their best chance. The next morning, when Damien and Angela went out to visit a friend, Samuel sneaked into the office and placed the recorder under a pile of papers on the big desk. He checked to make sure it was hidden. Then he hurried back outside before anyone could see him. All day, Martha and Samuel felt nervous. Every time the door opened, Martha jumped. She watched the clock, waiting for Damien and Angela to come back. When they finally returned, Damien and Angela went straight to the office. Martha waited, her hands sweaty. She didn't know what would happen next, but she prayed they would say something useful. Hours later, after Damien and Angela left the office to eat dinner, Samuel hurried in and grabbed the recorder. He took it straight to Martha's room. Together, they listened to the recording, hoping for a miracle. At first, all they heard were papers shuffling and Damien talking about work. Then Angela's voice came, cold and sharp. "She won't be a problem much longer," Angela said. "As soon as Samuel does what I asked, we'll be free." Damien replied, "Good. I'm tired of pretending. Once she's gone, this house will finally be ours." Martha's eyes filled with tears, but there was hope in her heart too. They finally had proof. "We did it," Samuel whispered. Martha nodded. "Now we need to be brave. We'll show everyone the truth." That night, for the first time in a long while, Martha slept with a small smile. Maybe, just maybe, she could win this battle. The next few days in the Okafor mansion felt strange. The air seemed heavy, like a storm was coming. Martha tried to keep calm, but her hands shook whenever she remembered Damien's voice saying, "Once she's gone, this house will finally be ours." She knew she could not wait much longer. It was time to act. Samuel was always nearby. He watched everyone closely, making sure no one noticed the worry on Martha's face. They had the recording hidden in a small wooden box under Martha's bed. Every night, Samuel checked to make sure it was still there. One afternoon, Damien announced a special dinner would be held at the mansion. He invited his business partners, a few family members, and some important guests from town. He said he wanted to show off the new look of the house, but Martha and Samuel knew there was more to it. They could feel it in the way Damien looked at Martha, like he was planning something big. The day of the dinner arrived. The mansion was decorated with golden lights and fresh flowers. Expensive cars filled the driveway. Staff hurried back and forth with trays of food and drinks. Martha sat in her wheelchair by the window, dressed in a simple but elegant blue dress. She knew this might be the last time she would have a chance to speak the truth. Samuel entered quietly. "Everything is ready, madam," he whispered. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Martha nodded. "It's the only way. We must show everyone what Damien and Angela are planning." As the guests arrived, laughter and music filled the house. Damien was all smiles, shaking hands and telling jokes. Angela stood beside him, dressed in a red gown and smiling sweetly at everyone. No one could guess the dark plan hiding behind their bright faces. At dinner, the long table was filled with delicious food. The guests talked about business and told stories. Martha sat quietly at the far end of the table. Damien ignored her, acting like she was invisible.
But Samuel kept glancing her way, giving her courage with his steady eyes. Halfway through the meal, Damien stood up and tapped his glass. "Dear friends," he announced, "I want to share some news. Martha has not been feeling well for a long time. Soon, she will be leaving the house to get special care." Martha felt the eyes of everyone at the table turn to her. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "Excuse me, may I say something?" she asked. Damien tried to stop her, but some of the guests, including the local police chief and a respected judge, nodded for her to speak. Martha turned to Samuel, who stood at the door holding the wooden box. Samuel came forward, opened the box, and pulled out the small recorder. He pressed play. The room grew quiet as Damien's voice played out. "Once she's gone, this house will finally be ours." Angela's voice followed. "As soon as Samuel does what I asked, we'll be free." There was silence for a moment. Then whispers spread around the table. The judge's face turned serious. The police chief looked at Damien and Angela with hard eyes. Damien jumped up. "That's a lie! She faked this! Samuel and Martha are trying to ruin me!" But the voices on the recorder were clear. Angela's face turned pale. She tried to stand, but her knees were shaking. The police chief stood up. "We need to talk in private, Mr. Damien, and you too, Miss Angela." The guests looked shocked. Martha sat quietly, relief flooding through her body. Samuel gave her a proud smile. The truth was finally out.
After the dinner party, the whole mansion was in chaos. The staff whispered in corners. Some of the guests left quietly, shaking their heads and looking back at Martha with worried faces. Damien paced up and down the hallway, shouting on the phone, while Angela sat alone in the guest room, her hands shaking. The happy smiles from earlier were now gone. Fear had taken their place. The police chief and the judge stayed behind. They listened to the recording again in Martha's presence. Samuel stood beside Martha, ready to protect her from anything. The officers took the recorder as evidence and asked Martha and Samuel to write down everything they knew. Martha told them about the poison packet, about Angela's threats, and about Damien's cold words. Angela was called into the room next. She tried to act innocent, but when the police chief asked about the packet, her face turned white as chalk. Damien came in after her and argued, saying Martha and Samuel were trying to destroy his name and take over his house, but the truth was too strong to hide. "You have no proof," Damien shouted. "That recording could be fake. Anyone can make such a thing." But the police chief held up the packet of poison. "This is enough for us to open an investigation," he said, "and the judge has confirmed that the recording matches your voices." The staff who had heard Damien and Angela whispering came forward too. They told the officers what they had seen and heard, backing up Martha's story. Damien's face turned red with anger. Angela began to cry, begging Damien to save them both. But Damien was silent now, his pride broken. Samuel gently took Martha's hand, and for the first time she felt safe. Within hours, police cars pulled into the mansion's driveway. Officers searched Damien's office and Angela's guest room. They found more hidden messages, notes, and a secret phone Angela used to plan everything. Martha watched from her wheelchair as Damien and Angela were taken out in handcuffs. She felt many things at once: sadness, anger, but also relief. She was finally free. The staff gathered in the living room. Samuel looked at them and said, "You all saw what happened. We must always do the right thing, even when it's hard." Mrs. Doris, the housekeeper, nodded and wiped her eyes. "We should have helped you, madam. We're sorry." Martha smiled gently. "It's over now. Let's move forward together." That night, the mansion was very quiet. The golden lights still shined, but now there was a new feeling in the air. Martha sat in her room, looking at the stars outside her window. For the first time since her accident, she did not feel like a prisoner. She felt hopeful.
Samuel checked on her before going to bed. "You are strong, madam," he said softly. "You taught us all to stand up for what's right." Martha looked up at him and smiled. "Thank you, Samuel. I could not have done this without you." He smiled back. "Rest now. Tomorrow will be a new day." News of Damien and Angela's arrest spread through the town quickly. Some people found it hard to believe that the famous Mr. Okafor and his special guest could do such terrible things. But soon, everyone was talking about what happened at the mansion that night. People called it the night truth won. After the police took Damien and Angela away, the mansion became very quiet. Martha spent most of the next day in her room resting. She was tired but also relieved. It felt strange not to worry every minute. She knew there was still a lot to do, but now she was not afraid. Later that week, Martha was asked to come to the police station to give her full story. Samuel went with her, pushing her wheelchair and carrying the packet of poison. At the station, the police chief and a kind lady officer helped them. Martha told them everything: how Damien had treated her, how Angela threatened her, and how Samuel had helped save her life. Samuel explained how Angela had given him the packet and tried to bribe him. The officers listened carefully, writing down every detail. When Martha finished her story, the police chief smiled kindly. "You were very brave," he said. "Thank you for speaking the truth. We will take care of the rest." Back at the mansion, the staff were busy. Some were cleaning, some were moving things out of Damien's office. The lawyer arrived with papers for Martha to sign. He told her that the judge had frozen Damien's accounts and that the house now belonged to Martha, at least until the court case was over. For the first time, Martha felt safe in her own home. She called the staff together in the living room. "I know the past months have been hard for all of us," she said, "but now things are going to change. This house will be a place of kindness and respect. No one will ever be mistreated here again." The staff clapped, and some even smiled for the first time in weeks. Samuel stood by her side, proud and happy. A few days later, Martha received news that Damien and Angela would be tried in court. The case would happen at night, so important guests and witnesses could attend without the media causing trouble. Martha was nervous but ready. Samuel promised to be with her every step of the way. On the night of the trial, Martha wore a simple white dress, and Samuel helped her into the courtroom. There were many people inside: lawyers, police officers, the judge, and some of Damien's business friends. Damien and Angela looked different now. They wore plain clothes and sat quietly, not looking at anyone. The judge listened as the police showed the packet of poison and played the secret recording. Samuel told the court what he knew, and Martha shared her story one more time. Damien's lawyer tried to defend him, saying Martha was making everything up, but the evidence was too strong. Finally, the judge spoke. "This court finds Damien Okafor and Angelchukwu guilty of conspiracy and attempted harm. They will be punished according to the law." Angela burst into tears and begged for mercy, but it was too late. Damien sat in silence, his face pale and empty. As Martha left the courtroom, many people came to shake her hand and thank her for her courage. She felt a lightness in her heart she had not felt for a long time. Samuel smiled and whispered, "You did it, madam. You are free now." Back at the mansion, the staff prepared a small dinner to celebrate. Mrs. Doris made Martha's favorite soup, and Samuel gave a short speech to thank Martha for her bravery and kindness. The days after the court case felt different for everyone at the Okafor mansion. The air was lighter and the house seemed warmer. The staff no longer whispered in fear. Instead, they laughed together in the kitchen and helped each other with their work. Martha was glad to see everyone smiling again. She felt like a dark cloud had finally lifted from her life. Martha knew she had a lot of work ahead. Now that the house was truly hers, she wanted to make it a place of hope and kindness. She called a meeting with all the staff, including Mrs. Doris, the cook, and the gardeners. Samuel sat beside her, looking proud. "I want us to start fresh," Martha said. "Let us treat each other like family. If you have ideas about how to make the house better, tell me. No one should ever feel afraid here again." Everyone nodded and promised to do their best. Even Mrs. Doris, who used to be nervous, now shared her ideas about making a small vegetable garden for the kitchen. Martha loved the plan and asked Samuel to help Mrs. Doris make it happen. Over the next few weeks, Martha's confidence grew. She started spending more time in the garden, enjoying the sunshine and the sound of birds. She even joined the staff at dinner sometimes, laughing at their jokes and sharing her own stories. For the first time since her accident, Martha felt truly alive. Samuel became more than just a gateman. Martha made him chief of security and her personal assistant. He helped her with daily tasks, managed the workers, and even taught her how to use a computer to keep track of things around the house. One afternoon, while they were both in the garden, Samuel said, "Madam, you are very brave. You turned your pain into something good for all of us." Martha smiled. "Thank you, Samuel. I could not have done it without your help and friendship. You stood by me when no one else would." Samuel looked down, a little shy. "It was the right thing to do. I am happy I could help."
A few months passed, and the Okafor mansion became a symbol of hope in the neighborhood. People talked about Martha and how she changed her life after so much pain. Martha decided she wanted to help others who were suffering, just as she had suffered. With her new strength and Samuel's support, she started something wonderful. Martha opened her doors to women who needed help, especially those living with disabilities. She turned part of the mansion into a small center where they could learn new skills, share their stories, and find friends. The staff was kind and welcoming. Mrs. Doris taught cooking, Samuel helped with safety and gardening, and Martha shared her wisdom with everyone. Every week, the center filled with laughter and joy. The women who came felt safe, just like Martha had always dreamed. Samuel was always there to encourage them. He often told the new visitors, "Madam Martha is the bravest person I know. She never gave up, and neither should you." One bright Saturday morning, Martha held a small gathering in the garden. The sun was shining, and the flowers were in full bloom. Some of her new friends from the center, the staff, and even people from the neighborhood came to listen. Martha sat in her wheelchair, smiling at everyone. She looked strong and proud. Samuel stood beside her, looking happier than ever. She began to speak, her voice clear and calm. "There was a time when I thought my life was over. I felt lost and alone. But with the help of true friends, I found hope again. I learned that real strength is not about walking or running. It is about never giving up, no matter what happens. If you are facing hard times, remember that you are not alone. Together, we can rise above anything." The crowd clapped, and some people wiped tears from their eyes. Martha's words touched their hearts. After the speech, Martha looked around at the happy faces. She felt grateful. The pain of the past was gone, replaced by love, respect, and new beginnings. Damien and Angela were only memories now, both serving their time for what they had done. Martha no longer felt like a prisoner. She was free. That night, as Martha watched the stars from her window, she smiled. She knew she had finally turned her pain into purpose. And as long as she had her friends, her new family, and her courage, she would always rise from the ashes, stronger than before.